Hello and welcome to the fifth and final season of Father Time. That's right. This is the final season of Father Time. We've been off for a year, Matt. I don't know. It doesn't seem like we've been off that long, but we have had a bit of a hiatus. But I am excited to get this new season started. And Matt, what I'm really excited about is we're going to have an extended season, Lord willing, this season. We're looking at an episode for each month of the year. What do you think about that, Matt?
Yeah, I'm excited about it too. It's something that we actually talked about kind of early on in the process of making up Father Time as doing this season and trying to go out on a high note with the podcast. I think is going to be pretty cool. And the way that we're doing it, which I assume you're about to talk about, is pretty neat.
Absolutely. So, what we're going to do is we're going to interview 12 men that we believe are great fathers, godly fathers, and just ask them for advice and really off the cuff season. Not really a rigid plan or anything. We just want to ask a lot of questions. And you might notice that this is not January 1st. So, Lord willing, we plan on this episode coming out February 1st. There's a couple reasons for that. Number one, Matt had a little ice skating accident. And so, right before we were planning on recording this episode, he had a little accident ice skating. And then,
That's
go
not
ahead.
true. I fought Russians. That's not true. It
Okay,
was
well,
Russians.
I was hoping you'd be more modest, but okay.
Yeah.
No,
It was on ice, but yeah.
yeah.
Well, at least you weren't fighting ice.
It's true.
That is very pertinent for right now. But also, I had my wife and I had our fifth child in early January, our second boy, Micah Chase, and so we're very excited about that. And he's doing well, and my wife Lindsay's doing well also. So, needless to say, Matt and I have been very, very busy, but we are very excited to get this season started off. So, Lord willing, this should be on February 1st, and then we hope to have another episode on February 15th. And then after that, we should get back to the first day of each month for the rest of the year. So without further ado, we're going to ask some questions of our guest host this month, Brother Dan Cates. He is an instructor at the Memphis School of Preaching and does a great job there. And we've got a lot of questions to ask him about himself as a father and also his father, Brother Curtis Cates, which I'm really interested to find out about as well. I'm going to kick us off with one quick question, and then Matt has a series of questions to ask, and then I might jump in here and there as well. So, Brother Dan, the first question that I just wanted to ask was, you do have both a son and a daughter. I was wondering if you have any thoughts or tips on rearing boys versus girls. I think that could certainly help Matt and I, as well as many of our listeners.
Yeah. Having one of each definitely do. I would say, though, you're going to have differences if you have two girls. You're going to have differences if you have two boys. So every child's going to be unique, regardless of what gender that child is. The distinction probably is how you look at that child from the standpoint of the father or mother. You know, mothers are going to look at the sons differently than fathers are. Fathers are going to look at the daughters differently. I think that's why we see a society where when a father is in his children's lives, he probably is a little bit more conservative with his daughters because he knows the way that men think about girls. And so that's something that is a difference. But by and large, you just let their personalities inform how you're going to handle them. Like any children, and y'all know this with children that you have, the discipline that you use is going to differ based on who your child is. One of the children, you may be able just to give that child a look, and that child begins crying. Another child, you may have to threaten to take away a toy, take away a video game or something like that. Another one, you may have to use corporal punishment, although that's not something that we hear much anymore. But maybe it's a spat on the hand or something, or in the olden days, going to pick our switches and things of that nature. But that's not so much a gender thing, but each child's going to be different. But I would say that the main issue is recognizing I'm going to naturally treat boys and girls differently, but their personalities ought to be the main thing, regardless of what the gender is.
Yeah. So, yeah, I think there's a lot of good stuff there. Did you have something to ask or say?
Oh no, I was just going to follow up.
Yeah, go ahead.
I was just going to ask regarding. I know it seems like boys. Well, maybe this isn't always the case, but I know in our household, boys seem to be a lot more rambunctious. I don't know if that's pretty universal for the most part, but do you have any thoughts on that? And then we can think about some of Matt's questions as well.
I would
real
say,
chill.
yeah, I would say generally boys can be more rambunctious, but I mean, we have tomboys.
Yeah.
I've seen some girls that are as rambunctious as the boys are. So I wouldn't say that's a universal thing. Generally speaking, from my own personal experience, the boys are going to be more interested in the physical activities like sports and things. The girls are going to be more interested in reading or things of that nature. So there is some of that, but you're going to find exceptions to those rules.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah, I've talked about that with other people, just like whenever someone's about to have a boy or a girl, and of course we've got 3 and 3, so got experience with both. But for the most part with boys, like I tell people it's like with girls, this has reigned true at least for me, and I got this advice from someone else, but it's just said that with girls they're easier in the beginning and get harder as they get older. And with boys, they're harder in the beginning and get easier as they get older. And that's true. I mean, for me, it's like, you can make little girls really happy really easily when they're little, but with boys, you fight and fight and fight just to keep them alive, because they're always doing something, and, but yeah, no, that's good. So
I agree with that.
Yeah. They're always doing something just a little
Playing with fire, dynamite, or something.
Yeah. So, okay. So, question about your dad. Of course, your dad being Curtis Cates, and those who are familiar with the Memphis School of Preaching, which is most everybody that is involved in the network, and then also with, just listening, they probably know at least a little bit of your dad. Do you have a favorite memory of your dad that you'd like to share with us?
Well, I don't know. There's so many. A specific favorite would be hard to pick out. There are some things that maybe stand out a little bit more. Probably the most beloved thing, and it would be associated with more than just one memory. But the most beloved thing is that Dad, as you know, was busy. He was going to school the early part of my life. He ultimately got his doctorate in 1976. So he had been not only teaching and preaching and things of that nature, he had been a student the first 6 years of my life. And then he was teaching and preaching, and we moved several times as he went to different places. That's why I'm a fan of the Northwest, is because we moved to Oregon when I was 10. But he was the dean of Columbia Christian College there, and on Sundays he would preach somewhere. So we would go drive 2 hours on Sunday for him to preach somewhere, and then we'd drive back. Moved back to the Montgomery area. Then we moved up here when I was 12. And things started really settling down once we moved up here. He didn't stop being busy, but he wasn't necessarily traveling 2 hours every Sunday to preach this place or that place, since there are a lot of congregations located right around Memphis. And he was a member at 9 Arnold, so we didn't have to do a lot of driving to preach for a congregation like Columbiana, Alabama, or somewhere where we were located, even though it was an hour and a half away from our house. But the memory has to do with how busy he was, because he generally had at least 2 jobs, sometimes 3, and maybe more than that. But he would make sure, maybe once a summer or something, I don't know how often it was, or once a year maybe, maybe twice, but he would give me a day. And then he would do the same thing for Andy. He would give Andy a day. And again, it wasn't very often, and he was extremely busy. But on that day, they wouldn't tell us ahead of time. But they would wake both children up, and one of the children would get ready and go to school, and the other child would go and have his day with Dad. And on those days, he would do something that was just absolutely awesome. We'd go out together on the Alabama River in the boat or something like that. And that's cool when you go out as a family and whatnot, but when you just go out with your dad, that's pretty snazzy. So he made sure to have one day that he gave to me, one day that he gave to Andy. So that's one that really stands out. Is as busy as he was, he made sure that there would be times when it would just be us.
That's really cool. I remember you telling me a story about, I don't know if it was you and Andy, begging for video games. You remember telling the story?
No, it was just me.
Yeah, it was just you.
Yeah, because Andy
had a
5 years
skateboard.
older. Yeah, we love skateboards and everything. Andy was 5 years older, and so he moved out of the house, joined the Coast Guard in 1982. Around I don't know the year for sure, 77 or so, the Atari came out, the Atari 2600. I forget the year, but it was not 1982. So Andy wasn't overly interested in the prospect of video games, but I was, and I still am. I joke with people that my parents are the reason that I'm addicted to video games, which addicted means I play 4 hours every 2 weeks or so. So that's about how addicted I am. But anyway, he would always, or I would always go to Dad and I would say, Dad, can we get an Atari? Well, we didn't have a lot of money. Dad was a preacher and an educator. And in that day, neither one of those fields really was remunerated the way that they should have been. And still, many places are not today. So I'd beg Dad, can we get an Atari? Can we get an Atari? Can we get an Atari? Anyway, he probably got tired of it. But one day, he finally, I had broken the exterior, and he said, "Boy, I'll get you an Atari, but you're gonna play it." So I was like, "Oh, got an Atari," and I think I got like 2 games. It came with whatever the tank battle game was. Then I've got a game called Gopher, but this was probably 1982 or 1983, and I'd been wanting one since they first came out. It was 4 or 5 years before we could afford to get one. But when we got it, it wasn't going to be a toy that I played for 3 days and then never touched again. It was going to be one that I got his money's worth out of. And I did.
Yeah.
That's hilarious.
Good for you, right?
Yeah. Now, let me add to that. I mentioned, we didn't have a lot of money. But one rare occasion, absolutely rare. The year was probably about 1976, may have been 75. Dad had preached somewhere out west, and I don't know if it was California or Texas, but there's money in California and Texas. Dad came back, and actually went on 2 separate. One time he brought back Pong, the little video game Pong where you had the little paddle controllers. He brought that back. That was that was early. That was very early, and that's what really sort of whet the appetite for the Atari. It would take 5 or 6 years to get. But Dad came back and he said, "Boys, I got paid pretty well on that gospel meeting that I just preached or whatever it was." And so he gave Andy and he gave me like cash. I think it was $50 each. It may have been 100. I don't think it was 100. I think it was $50 each. But in the 1970s, when you're a 5-year-old, 6-year-old kid, and you get $50, you are rich. So I bought a black and white television for my room, and I was probably the only 5 or 6-year-old in Montgomery, Alabama, that had his own television in his room. Loved it. I would watch that thing too late at night. I'd watch it till the national anthem played.
Oh man,
Back in
that's
those
so
days.
fun.
Yep.
All right,
fun.
so moving on, asking some more spiritually related questions. How do you think your dad's parenting style affected you and your parenting style?
Well, that's another deep question. From a strictly spiritual standpoint, he obviously enforced upon us what was most important. And on a day of worship, we're going to be at worship. And it may be the case that that day of worship means waking up at 6 o'clock in the morning and getting back at 10 o'clock that night, being gone, all day long, because we are driving the great distance. But Sunday was what it ought to be. It was a holy day. It was the Lord's day. It didn't belong to anybody but the Lord. That doesn't mean that we couldn't do fun things on that day, but the emphasis was worship. And that's something that we've tried to instill through the years. Both Maggie and Connor are faithful Christians, so we've done something right. My brother and I are both faithful Christians, so Mom and Dad did something right as well. But that would be the primary things, just making sure we understood the most important things were the most important things. But my parenting style is not exactly like Dad's parenting style. I think part of that is just a product of the age. In the 70s, if you've got a problem, you get over it. In the last couple of decades, if you've got a problem, we need to find out what the root cause of the problem is, and maybe it involves counseling. So you've got a lot more than you just need to behave. In the 70s, it was you need to behave. Well, the reason I bring that up is our son's on the autism spectrum. He's great. He doesn't have any problem. He is a great worker and so forth. But even now, there are some things, textures and other things that will drive him nuts. He has some areas where you can obviously tell. All right. When I was a child, textures killed me. The little pins that would have the metal lines real close together around, I could not touch one of those. Well, in the 70s, you're going to touch it and you're going to write with it. You don't have, let's see what we can do to accommodate such and such problem. So it's not that they failed in an area, but that was an area where we're more mindful of what our children need than they were 50 years ago. So 50 years ago, it was, you got a problem, you get over it, you behave, doesn't matter what the sensory things that are bothering you are. I mean, I guarantee you, I was on the spectrum, and I probably still am. Y'all know me. But so there's that difference in parenting style. But his style had a concern, even if there wasn't this, let's figure out what the problem is, to talk and to make sure that we try to be on the same page. So that was a big thing. But parenting styles, I think any of us would say we're not exactly like our parents in that because of the product of the
Yeah.
age.
I
Yeah.
have kind of an oddball question, Dan. My wife and I, back when we were dating, we thought we knew everything as it pertains to parenting. And we had these big plans, we're never going to do this. We're always going to do that. And we kind of learned real quick that we didn't have everything figured out. I can remember my wife and I used to say, "Oh, when we go to McDonald's, we're not going to buy the Happy Meal. We're just gonna buy the burger and fries a la carte. They don't need the little toy made in China anyway, or the wacky packet Sonic, whatever the case may be." Well, guess what? We went to Sonic or McDonald's or whatever, and we bought the Happy Meal. And
Yeah.
so I think about little things like that we thought we just knew exactly how we were going to do everything when it come to parenting. Do you have any thoughts about maybe something like that? Maybe not a super important kind of thing, but just some oddball little thing like that maybe you and your wife thought you were going to handle this way, but then you ended up getting into the real world of parenting and switching gears?
Yeah. There are a number of them. One that sticks out, and it's a big one, is school. Maggie went to first grade at a private school in Memphis. She had gone to a kindergarten down here that was at one of the area denominational churches. They had a little school. So you could say a private kindergarten, and then she went to a private first grade. But we recognized pretty early that we did not want her in the school systems that we had access to. Part of that is because of what is taught, mandated to be taught as far as science is concerned and things of that nature. Part of it also is we saw the products of a lot of the schools. And this isn't intended to be bragging or anything, but Maggie knew more about some things when she was 5 years old than one of the seniors who was visiting from time to time at Independence knew. And so, yeah, we decided pretty quickly that we wanted to go the homeschool route, and that's completely different from how I was growing up. Not that mom and dad were against it, but I had this very negative view of homeschool. Looking back on it, I wish I had been homeschooled. I think that would have really helped me to thrive. But as a result, we've gotten Maggie and Connor exactly what they've needed. Maggie's a librarian, and Connor is working for an aircraft company up in Memphis. So that's a big one. I had preconceptions that didn't matter. We never were like our children are only going to eat vegetables, because vegetables are a lie. And now I'm going to go ahead and say that. And I know we have some people that are probably turning off the broadcast now. But the reason I said that is because when I was a child, I was told to eat my vegetables. And mom said, "Dan, if you don't eat your vegetables, you're going to turn purple." Not purple.
Yeah.
So they are a lie. Vegetables are a lie. Dan Case.
You heard
Yes,
it
sir.
here first.
That is the quote. You are not going to turn purple. Seriously, choose your battles.
Yeah.
There's some things that you need to fight about as a parent. There's some things that you don't. If the child's not eating something, let him not eat it. He's going to get hungry enough. He's going to find something that he's going to like. And it may be vegetables. And if so, that's great. But he's not going to refuse food forever, or she's not going to refuse food forever. So pick your battles. Don't automatically get angry because the child does not want to do things exactly as I said to do them at this very moment. Listen, you're going to have huge battles that you're going to have to fight. in 5 years, in 10 years, when you're dealing with teenagers, don't make it an adversarial relationship when the child's 4 years old over how or what he eats. Because that's just going to say every time that we have any disagreement, it comes to blows. And that also is going to mean that vegetables are as important as going to the prom. No, I'm going to make sure those have two different weights. So that's a big one. Is we never wanted to really fight battles that wouldn't be important and would detract from the real battles.
See, Matt has older kids. All of my kids are 10 and under, and so I'm thinking about all those teenager battles that are coming up, and I'm just like, oh no, here we go.
Hey, what you do now will determine a lot on how difficult those battles are.
Yeah. Yeah, I think like it's kind of like do you like basketball, Dan? I can't remember if you like basketball.
If it's a sport, I like it.
That's what I thought. I'm not a big basketball fan. This is why. Like I will like watch some games when March Madness comes up, and I've watched almost entire tournaments before, but like there will be calls that they will start making when the stakes are higher that they haven't been calling the whole time, and then and everybody's mad. You're like, why? Like, let them play. That's what we've been doing this whole time. Why now? Now you're calling everything. I think like it just drives you crazy. And I think the if they started off calling every single thing and then they wanted to loosen up, nobody cares about that. But if you try to tighten it up at the end, everybody cares about that. And I don't know exactly why that is, but I think that also, like if you start off with your kids and you get them younger and you're training them younger, when you get them older, like if you want to slack off a little bit, it's okay, like in a certain area. But yeah, I think that if you try to tighten it up at the end and you haven't been getting there, like you haven't been leading up to it, I think it just irritates people. But anyway.
Yeah. No, that's an excellent point. And I'm not saying that they don't need that direction early. They need direction early.
Yeah.
But it doesn't need to be that a major thing when they are 15 is given no more weight than a minor thing when they're 12.
Right.
We need to be consistent. And really, that's what you're saying. Call it the same the whole game. But you don't treat, and I don't watch a ton of basketball. I usually only watch when my teams are competitive. So, I haven't watched much NBA at all because my team doesn't exist. And I'm only watching Georgia this year because we've actually finally gotten a decent team.
Was that the Supersonics?
The Supersonics were the team, and Oklahoma 2009 or 10 or 8, 2008, I think it was, took them. But you don't call a flagrant 2 for traveling in the first half. Okay. If you treat traveling like a flagrant 2 in the first half, a flagrant 2 doesn't mean anything in the last 5 minutes. Yeah. And that's my point.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and 2, I think parents, I've seen this one in kind of in conjunction with what you're saying. I've seen this one with the punishment that goes along with some of these things, that you end up punishing yourself, and or your spouse. And I learned this one a while back. Like I didn't even think about it at the time, but then when I got home, my wife let me know, you punished me today because I had to uphold a punishment that you said, hey, this is going to happen. I think what it was is I was getting irritated with the kids and their attitude, and I thought that they were watching too much TV, and I said, no TV tomorrow. And then my wife had stuff to do, and she's like, you punished me. And so, you got to kind of think about that kind of stuff too, I think. But yeah, that's good points. By the way, you mentioned Maggie in her intelligence, and I wish I had time to just tell stories. You remember the time that I joked in class? Do you remember this? Where
I don't know.
I'll tell this one just briefly. But Maggie is very intelligent, and she was in there, I don't know, 10, 12 when I was in school, and she would sit in class, and she would know all these answers that we didn't know, and I was like, and it was just ridiculous. Like it made us feel inadequate, to say the least, and so one day I was just goofing off, and Maggie came in, and she would sit kind of in front of me, and you were standing up there, and I said, "All right, just tell it to me straight. Like, are y'all on your like 40-minute drive over here? Like, hey, I'm going to teach on this, and so you can just interject this." And I was like, "Today I want to talk about when Xerxes, whipped a river." And she goes, "You mean the Hellespont?" And I was like, "Yep, that's what it was."
She's just always been a sponge, and that's great.
Yeah.
Say something once, she's got it. She's got her mother's memory. I do not have that memory. I wish I did, but she's got her mother's memory. And Mason, her son, is going to be the same way. He hasn't got it down yet, but he has basically the second half of the Greek alphabet already. He still needs to work a little bit on the first, but from mu on is awesome. Sort of rattles getting to mu. So next year, he's 3. Yeah. Next year is the year that he comes in on the first day of class, and I say, "Hey, if he can learn the Greek alphabet, you can learn the Greek alphabet."
That's right,
Mason. Go for it. Children are sponges.
Oh yeah. Let me ask you this. I know we're kind of like coming down to the end of our time. This can be kind of twofold. I would like to know, if you could think back to how your dad might answer this question, and then how you might answer this question. It might be one the same. I don't know. But what kind of advice do you think your dad would give on rearing children? And, would there be something that you could add to that?
Yeah. I would say that Dad probably would go sort of from a twofold perspective. Remember how you were reared, and realize that you don't have to rear your child that way. I was reared in the 70s. Well, Dad was reared in the 40s. And, I thought it was tough in the 70s. I can only imagine, what the attitude of fathers toward sons or daughters, for that matter, would have been in the 40s. So Dad's dad was extremely strict. And I think that knowing how he had to speak to his dad, how he had to obey his dad, helped him in how he handled Andy and me. A specific example of that is Dad had to call his dad father, and he had to call his dad mother. So Dad always spoke of father and mother. Well, once we came along, Dad said, "You are not going to call me father. We'd call him anything else, but we were not going to call him father." So there was something back there that what was connected in his mind to that formality, and he did not want to pass that on. So I think that his recommendation, and probably mine too, was think about what was done right in your upbringing and apply that to the upbringing of your children. Just like teachers, I think a successful teacher is a teacher who can remember both the successes and the mistakes of those who taught them, and recreate the successes that help them and avoid the mistakes that hurt them. When I'm teaching, it's Richard Curry, it's Dad, it's a fellow named Dr. Thomas Kaiser from the University of Arkansas, Little Rock. It is, several main people and what they did right. And it's not doing what Miss Bond did in my junior year of high school. It's not doing what Mr. I can't remember his name was, who was a chemistry. Same thing with parents. Remember what your parents did right and wrong and try to do the right. And you know what didn't work with you? Don't do that. Dad would probably say something like that, and I would agree.
Kind of in the negative case, breaking the cycle kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
And then in the case of those of us who were reared with Christian parents, not perfect parents, but Christian parents, hopefully we have a lot more positives to look at than negatives.
Yeah, it's kind of there's a psychological principle called cybernetics, and that's kind of that thought process of breaking the cycle. It's pretty neat little illustration there. I wonder if you could answer this quickly. Your dad being reared in the 40s, did his dad serve during World War II at all?
No, did not serve. His dad was actually a I guess metal worker would be the best description, and a preacher. So he worked down in the docks in Mobile, Alabama, when Dad was young. That's where my uncle was born. Dad had been born up north, but I say up northern, mid Alabama, but further north than Mobile.
Like Birmingham.
But Dad worked, so Granddad. He was just an industrial worker during the 30s and 40s. In his youth, probably 18 or 19, he had gone out to Utah to play semi-professional baseball. So I'm assuming he had to work in industries out there. But I know once Dad and Uncle Paul and so forth came around, he was between working industrial work and preaching. When I was a child, he was just preaching and retired.
Well, I've got one more question that we could close out with, unless you've got something. All right. So do you have any additional thoughts on raising children or just being a good dad, and anything else in addition to what we've talked about?
You're not going to be perfect. We're not perfect at anything that we do. We're not perfect Christians, even though we would strive for perfection. And we're not going to be perfect fathers, even though we would strive for perfection. Understand that while you're the head of the house, you are not an autocrat. The wife is called in Scripture the oikodespotes, so house ruler. So you're the head, but she has authority as well. And so, make sure that it's not you and then your wife sort of takes a back seat. You're a team. The houses that make it easier on the children are the ones that have the father and mother working as a team, not working against each other. I was blessed. Obviously, I had Curtis Cates as a father, but probably more importantly, I had Annette Cates as a mother. And, when Dad was teaching a cluster class in Trenton, Tennessee over the course of 3 days, it was Mom who was at home. So Dad was constantly traveling. Mom was there at home. So, be a team with your spouse. That's probably the biggest thing.
Yeah. All right. Well, I tell you what, I have loved this first episode. It's been fun. Glad that we got to interview you and kind of reminisce about one of my favorite, well, actually, two of my favorite people in parents. And I was glad to be able to go through Memphis at the time that I did, and have you and your dad and Garland Elkins. So it was a good time.
Well, I'm grateful for you having me, and this has helped me to remember some of those things as well. While I was talking about some of the things, I was remembering other things that we didn't have time to talk about. Great memories. Sometimes you get busy in the moment, and you forget the things that you've done.
Yeah.
Thank you, Brother Cates.
Yes, sir.
We appreciate you for being our first guest on this final season of the Father Time podcast. We do plan on having perhaps some more continuing resources after this final season ends later this year. So stay tuned for that. Perhaps we'll have an announcement at the end of the year on that. We're just looking at maybe providing some continuing resources, whether it be in book formats or devotionals or whatever the case may be. So stay tuned for that. But that's all for this episode of Father Time. Lord willing, next time we will meet will be February 15th. Next time we meet. The next time we have an episode should be February 15th, and then March 1st after that, and hopefully, Lord willing, every first day of the month for the rest of this year of 2026. It's high time for Father Time. Had to get one of those in there. And we appreciate you for tuning in to the Father Time podcast.